Lab preparation. We already had the video on how to prepare the deliverables, and this has to do with packaging the already prepared materials and putting them into one file. Now, over here we're going to take care of the details of how to fill out the work order. Right? The other video can be found at this link, and I will put this link in the description below. Famous words. Now, I'm mentioning Tele 1021 21 fall 2021 fall here, or Tele 1021 22 fall 2022 fall. Um, I'm including this video in other subjects as well, and from one year to another. So it also works for structured cabling and network cabling in our school. Right. All right. Now, this when it comes to this YouTube link, how to prepare, how to package them, I'm mentioning this using Photoshop and MS Word, but you don't have to use that. You can use other software as long as the file is clear, readable, and tidy. Also check the evaluation rubric for each lab. All right. So here, and also as long as the file is in PDF format. Why do we need that in PDF format? The reason why we need it in PDF format is that if it's in some other format, even if you do it in Microsoft Word or some other Excel or whatever else, FOL reader sometimes doesn't like those, and it's going to either distort the file or it is going to not display it at all. Okay, so let's stick to the PDF format so I can properly mark it. If you submit your work in format other than PDF and I can still read it, I can still open, I'm just going to deduct your marks for not following the instructions. But sometimes if I can't see it, well, then your mark is going to be 0, right? It doesn't have to be Photoshop and MS Word also, as long as all the pages are within one document. I will not evaluate multiple files. And page 1 has to contain the work order full page, which we are going to talk about right now. Page 2 contains two separate tables, where each table includes the image requested in the top row of the table and the label of the image in the lower row. So every table is going to contain an image and a description of it. Right? Simple as that. All verbal instruction must be fulfilled. Right? All other evaluation rubrics criteria must be fulfilled. Familiarize yourself with the rubric with every lab to see how you're supposed to do things. We are practicing following the instructions. Trust me, it is going to help you when you find yourself a job. Now, this YouTube video is labeled Elect 1013, but it also applies to other courses as well, which is what I said in the beginning. This is a technical documentation. Please don't be creative. Don't deviate from the given instructions. It is important when you fill out the technical documentation. If you deviate or being creative, there are people who day in and day out they receive hundreds and hundreds upon hundreds de- um, deliverable documentations from maybe the whole North America or whatnot. And if they have to stop and look what you have done and try to figure out how you presented that, they just won't do it. Right? They will just reject it. Right? Simple as that. Say that again. All right, let's keep going. Let me just call it up on the full screen here. All right, so now when it comes to filling out the work orders, right, we have two blank work order sheets. Right, one is the main one. So all labs except the coaxial cable lab are going to use this. Now, the one that we have coaxial cable lab, the work order is slightly different. You can see on the bottom there are a few questions to be answered. And the regular work order has that mysterious table, which we'll talk about as we go along. Okay, so now we're going to take it section by section. So here the top, the middle, and the end. All right, now here's the top part, magnification. See that here? Okay, top part magnified. Good. All right, work order sign off. There's a bit of title of what it is. Workstation number. Please record the workstation you were working on. Our stations in room B1006, for example, are labeled A1, A2 through A6. And then on the other side, it's B1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mark the the workstation that you're working on. Okay. Now this might change by the class, right? Over here, lab number. Put the lab number. Is it lab number 1? Is it lab number 2? And so on. Number 3, 4, 5, whatever. Lab title. Clearly write the lab title, and you get that from our lab worksheets. Now, deliverables must be uploaded to the designated Dropbox before the next consecutive lab begins, or otherwise indicated, which would be the date indicated by your lab instructor on this work order. It would be manually written. And if you have late submissions, you're going to get your marks deducted. Sometimes we may have to change the date because we're going to give you some extension for whatever reason, or sometimes we're going to have to shorten the period within which you're going to have to submit. And the example of that is towards the end of term. We're just running out of time, so we just have to shorten things out. All right, PR, purchase requisition, or PO. Purchase requisition, PR number, or purchase order number. They're the same thing. Sometimes you're going to see PR number, sometimes you're going to see PO number. Same thing. This usually you will get from the company that, or whoever hires you, it will be given to you. Right? For this, for the purpose of this lab, we're just practicing filling it out, you just make something up. Just write whatever number comes to your head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. You can even include some letter characters. All right. Site number. This will also be given, so you don't have to worry about that in the real world. I want you to get used to seeing things like that. So just make something up. Write some number. What's important is that nothing is left blank. If you leave anything not touched that you're supposed to touch, you're going to get your marks deducted. I want you to get used to paying attention to every detail in the work orders. Side name. Well, you can make up some business, or you can put Fanshawe College. Yeah, you can just put that. City, well, city and province in our case. So that will be London, Ontario. Site contact. This here is it's a person on site that you're supposed to go and see once you arrive. So usually you can ask for manager on duty if it's a bigger corporation, or the owner, or whoever it is that you are instructed to contact when you arrive. If you're not instructed as any specific name, you just go in and ask for manager on duty, and they will know who to get. So over here, there will be that person's email maybe, or sometimes you will be given a phone number to call. I just blanked it out, so you don't have to worry about that. But make up a name here. You can put my name, right, because I'm your site contact here. We can pretend that. All right, so let's move along downwards. Site acceptance, customer signature, client signature, and date. This is for your lab instructor to fill this out. And one thing I'm going to mention to you. It is your responsibility to make sure that I sign it. Why am I saying that? Well, let's say you are working for a company that provides certain type of service and you have your own paperwork to complete. It is your paperwork to complete. That manager on duty on whatever site you're going to, they don't know and they don't care that your paperwork exists. They have their own things to do. Right? So before you leave, make sure that the paperwork is complete and the person that is supposed to sign the completion of it to confirm that you actually have done the job, make sure that you get their signatures. I might or maybe not pretend that I forget to sign your work orders. Please make sure that before you leave the class, you get me to sign it. All right? Um, because if you don't, and drive out 200 kilometers from the site, and then you go home and you go, oh wow, I forgot to get this thing signed as I left. Well, that's when you don't get paid, or the next morning, or maybe the same evening, you just get back into your car and drive to the site just to get that signature. So I want you to pay great attention to that. Now, for the lab one that you're supposed to complete at home, just put your name and sign it. Anything, all the other labs, get your signature. To print the name, get the signature, get the contact, which would be the instructor. To print the name and sign, which would be me or other lab instructor in the future. Right? Now, when it comes to this here, you can print my name, but you can't sign my name. So you can print it, but you have to get me to sign it. You can put the date on it. Completion verified by. Sometimes a third company, another company is hired to perform certain duties that have to do with the technical services. Like, for example, there is a big company in the States that takes care of setting up, getting the deal, and maybe doing some on-site, on their own site testing and setting up a mock arrangement of what the system should be. So these are the main guys. But some technical services can be contracted out to some local companies, and they will be working together. If that exists, then you'll be giving some clear instructions that before you leave, this work has to be verified by so and so who takes care of the IT portion of the whole service contract and whatnot. If that's the case, you're going to put some name, so just make up some sort of a name. Right? And when you call, sometimes if it's something to do with the network, some smart devices, those people actually will log in from outside. They will test the device that you or connection that you were supposed to repair, and then if they're happy, they will give you a completion verification ticket. It's going to be in the form of a number or something like that, like just like a PO number. So they could include letters or numbers or whatnot, and you're going to write down the person's name and um, company name, for example. So here's a lot of space to write things. And then they're going to give you the verification ticket number. If that is missing, you don't get paid. If this is missing, this is signature is missing, you don't get paid. If this here, the ticket number is missing in the name, well, the ticket number is the most important. If that's missing, you don't get paid. All right. Now here, technician 1, technician 2. This is you. Sometimes you're going to be sent to do the jobs in pairs. Sometimes 3 or 4 people, sometimes even more. But we're going to just include 2 here. So this is you, technician number 1. Print your name, date, put a date, sign, put your signature here, and that's for you. If you are doing your work with somebody else that is involved, you print their name, but for the most part we will not. So just draw a line through it or put NA for N/A for not applicable, or do something that indicates that you have um, seen this field and you have done something with it. Don't leave it blank. So again, just either draw a line or put NA for not applicable. Same here. If there's just you doing the job, no any other person, just draw a line through here or put NA. Same thing with the date. Don't leave it blank. And over here as well. Right? Now, take one time in. This is for billing information. Right? So time in. When did you arrive on site? You can put the time the class begins. Time out. You can put the time that the class ends. Mm. Travel time. Well, sometimes you bill for the travel time, and sometimes you bill for the travel time both ways, depending on your contract arrangement with whoever hires you. Or sometimes you bill the time for one way. Well, try to always get it in your favor, so you get billed, so you bill for both ways. That's part of negotiations. You can just make up some travel time, or you can put 0, or you can put 2 hours, or whatnot. Right? Now, technician, if there's another technician here, same thing here. Then just put the relevant information. If not, draw a line or put not applicable. Same here and same here, and then you add the whole thing. Total hours on site. Well, you do the math here, time in and time out, and you do the math here, travel time, and then you do the math here. You add. Math is important. You should be able to add. When you make money, you should be able to add. You should be able to add. All right. So that's pretty self-explanatory here. Okay. Moving down along. Description of work or work description and materials used. Try to do when it comes to description. Don't be a story writer. Do point form, and don't worry about the grammar. Just when you do the point form, let's say instead of saying I installed 2 telephone jacks on the wall, all right? You can just put 2 telephone jacks installed. That's it. How much shorter it is. Usually you get not much space to write things on anyways here. And just get to the point so people who receive that they can read it quickly. They don't have to fish out the information from the whole story you're writing. Okay, just and you'll get a hang of that, right? But keep that in mind. Materials used. Usually when you do labs in college, you're listing everything. You're listing your tools, you're listing any kind of thing that has to do with it. But this is not the case. Right? Just use the materials that you will bill the client for. So don't say that you have used a screwdriver. Don't say that you have used a crimper. Don't say that, okay, we got it. But you can just say 15 data jacks, Cat 5e. That's it. Uh, 200 feet of cable, Cat 5e, FT4 or FT6. That's it. And just try to separate those things by either writing slashes or dashes or what. So whoever is reading that, they have just imagine you're supposed to read that, and you're supposed to know what materials to bill for after the job is done. Right? And I'll show you some other tricks as we go along in our class. Okay. Now here is the last portion. Remember that here? Last portion in the regular work order that we are going to use looks like this, and for the coaxial cable it looks like this. So let's just go there here. So this is the all labs except coaxial cable and coaxial cable lab. Here's that mysterious table: jack ID, device type, network switch ID, network switchboard. When you do a service call that has to do with, let's say, repairing a corroded jack, or something like that. The IT companies like to keep record of things, and let's say it's a garden center at some huge department store, and those are being repaired a lot because the data jacks in garden centers, they are outside and they corrode through the winter. So in spring everybody wants them fixed because they can't plug in their cash registers into that. So you're going to have to find out what the jack ID, and this is the label on the jack's faceplate. Right? That also goes to the communication closet. Now, is it device type? Is it a voice or data? Well, is it voice? That would be a well, mm, VoIP, voice over IP telephone, for example, or is it just strictly data? Is it connected to a printer, for example, or computer or cash register or something like that? So you can just put whatever, whatever well, whatever it is supposed to be. Okay, whatever it is, just reflect the truth here. Okay, then network switch ID and network switch port. When the wire from the garden center goes to IDF, which stands for intermediate distribution frame, which is a closet that contains network switches, and sometimes the IT companies they want to know which switch was used because sometimes the switches are cascaded. Let's say that every switch is capable of 24 ports. What if the closet accommodates more than 24 smart devices or computers or IPs? Um, well, then more than one switch is being used. So is it switch number one, switch number two, switch number three, or something like that? And you're going to indicate the communication closet as well. And let's say it's switch number two, port number 11. Okay, so that's what you would do in the real world. All right, we are not going to deal with any of that in our labs, but again, I want you to get used to seeing things like that. So you ask the least amount of questions once you get hired. Of course, there's nothing wrong with asking questions, but the less you ask them, the more you know what to do, the more employable you are. Okay? Now, here's also an important thing. Cable test results saved or not. Some of the work that we're going to perform is going to involve cable testing, and the cable tests are going to present some results. And sometimes we're just going to take a picture mm, of the test screen for our purposes, but normally the test in the tester is being saved in the tester's memory, then it's being uploaded in the computer, saved in PDF file, and let's say the company requested 200 data jacks to be installed and they had to be tested, and the test results had to be available to them just to prove that there's no troubles, everything is nice and working. So that's what happens in the real life. In our case, we're just going to take a uh, picture with your cell phone. You're going to take a picture of the test screen. Okay, that's if you because some of the labs do not involve cable testing. So always say the truth. Again, the people who receive the deliverables, if they see yes here, they will be looking for attachments or anything that have those test results. And if you say something that's not true, let's say you don't have any test results, but by mistake you put yes, and they have to look for they're going to have to stop what they're doing and they're going to have to spend extra time looking for those test results, they are not going to be happy with you and they might actually reject your deliverable paperwork. Right? So if you have included them, say yes. If you didn't include them, because some of the jobs don't involve cable testing, then just say no. So the people who receive the work orders, they know whether to look for them or not. Okay? Photos attached, yes or no. Same thing. Right? If you took photos and you attached them in the documentation, if they are present, then say yes. If you didn't, well, say no. And over here, I'm going to explain that as we go along. This is the bottom of the coaxial cable lab. Cable RG designation. Is it RG6? Is it RG11? Is it RG59? Is it RG58? Or so on. So, RG designation, cable type. Put it here. You will know exactly what we're working with. Right? Not saying that yet. Resistance, and then we're going to, well, for this here, if you think about it, um, once you, and I'll explain it further. You don't even need a multimeter to check the resistance. This is so you will know whether it's going to be no resistance, so the resistance will be zero, or it will be infinite. Right? I will explain that thing further to you. Resistance center conductor to outer conductor. Hmm. At the connector end, for example. Resistance center conductor to center conductor at opposite ends. Resistance of outer conductor to the outer conductor at opposite ends of the cable. And here's the thing, we're going to spend some time on that. There's going to be a whole lesson on that. What is the characteristic impedance of the cable that we used? It is important to know that. Right? So then I included also tools, basic screwdrivers, kit. Well, Phillips number one, Phillips number two, Robertson number one, Robertson number two. Sometimes you might want to get Phillips number three as well, and a slotted screwdriver. Um, quarter inch is fine, or 3/8 of an inch as well. You might want to get both. Then miniature screwdrivers. You're gonna get a miniature Phillips, miniature slotted screwdriver. Sometimes those are being given away as gifts, promotional gifts by companies who sell equipment, all right? Because sometimes we're going to connect the well screws that are not as big as the duplex receptacle for electrical purposes. Okay, so sometimes we need those smaller screwdrivers, wire cutters, needle nose pliers, and permanent marker. Those are the most common tools that you're going to need in our lab. Okay, and of course, do not forget the safety glasses. We need to be wearing them at all times when we are in the lab. Okay, that's it. So now you know how to fill out the paperwork or the work order.